In today's video, I'm going to go over the XFL and United States Football League and their merger league, the United Football League. And what do I expect? Some rule changes, and just my overall thoughts being a Philadelphia Stars fan. I've been writing articles for the Philadelphia Stars since I heard that the Philadelphia Stars were going to be a team. Um, I always loved the idea of new leagues. I like spring football leagues. It gives people opportunities, and it's something that Dwayne Johnson's talked about all the time with the XFL. Um, I loved watching PJ Walker in the um in the first iter in the no second iteration of the XFL because there's three iterations. And when I mean there wasn't a Pennsylvania football team for the XFL. I was kind of hopping around trying to figure out what team I like. I really couldn't like gravitate towards any team. I just loved watching PJ Walker. I'm so happy with his semi-successful NFL career. I would say it's semi-successful compared to some other players. He gets opportunities to start here and there. He's a nice backup here and there. But yeah, I like him. I just want to start off from like the beginning of where we were at with spring football leagues. So the United States Football League started off in the 80s. It was not the first spring football league. There's been others, like the World Football League, but the United States Football League took some key stars out of college right away. And Herschel Walker is not one of them. Reggie White, Steve Young, Jim Kelly, a lot of Hall of Famers, a lot of great players. I would argue if you want to look at Herschel Walker's whole career, including his USFL career, he should be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Um, I mean, there's so many great players, great coaches that came from the United States Football League in the 80s, and they were a real threat to the NFL until they tried to go head to head with them by going into the fall. That's where the USFL really just ended up going away. Um, it's a long story short. Then in 2001, the XFL started. That was supposed to be the Extreme Football League, with like an X instead of an E, and that was started by WWE founders. I know Vince McMahon was semi involved with that. Vince McMahon was also involved with the second iteration of the XFL. But in 2001, it just was this new, fresh energy football league. They just didn't really make much money. There's only been a handful of successful football leagues. The AAFC in the 1940s, which merged with the NFL, the American Football League in the 60s, which also merged with the NFL, and the USFL in the 80s, which gained an expansion draft of a lot of current Pro Football Hall of Famers. And I wouldn't say the XFL was successful, but there was also other types of football, like the Arena Football League, which has been successful up until a couple years ago, but the Arena Football League's coming back. So I'm happy for the Philadelphia Soul coming back. And the Canadian Football League, which obviously has been around for longer than the NFL. If I mean, some people probably don't even believe that, but yes, the Canadian Football League's technically been around longer than the NFL. And the XFL wasn't really great. It was innovative though. There was a lot of new innovations. I mean, there were some crazy ones, like instead of a coin flip to decide who gets the ball, it would be this like race to track down a ball on the ground and try and strip the ball away from the other person. It was crazy, crazy times in the XFL in 2001. But then, right before the pandemic, I would say a couple years before the pandemic, the AAF came in, the Alliance of American Football. Um, that was the first spring league in a while that was like, hey, we want to actually be successful. And, they were successful in getting people to watch and getting viewership. The only issue is they just weren't making money. They were putting too much money into it and they weren't making enough back. So I like the AF. I remember watching the Orlando team, the Orlando Apollos, with Garrett Gilbert, and they were undefeated, I believe, and they were like crowned champions. They crowned themselves champions. Anyways, AAF was semi-successful. There was clearly something there. They didn't want to be like a direct competition with the NFL. They wanted to be like a minor league to the NFL. And the NFL was watching them. They saw that they failed, and then the XFL comes in a couple years after that. The XFL comes in spring of 2020, and it looked really good. I mean, watching the XFL, that was so fun. It was so it the XFL in 2020 was refreshing. I mean, you got old NFL talent and also talent that's just been unrecognized before. And you get stars like PJ Walker as one of them who found his stride and was able to make an NFL roster. If they gave out an MVP for that season, I'm sure PJ Walker is definitely winning it, with the Houston Roughnecks at the time. And then the pandemic happened, and the XFL lost a bunch of money because they weren't able to fund it. And really, Vince McMahon ended up selling it, and we get the new iteration of the XFL. A couple years later, in 2022, the USFL starts up back again, and they bring back old names. Mostly, the uniforms look semi the same. I loved it. It was very much looking like the NFL, and the if you were to look at the XFL and USFL, the XFL is this fun league. USFL is very professional. And then when the USFL started, um, I heard the Philadelphia Stars were going to be a team, and I hopped right on board. I said, done deal. I'm going to be a Stars fan. This is so fun. I was so excited. I'm a fan of all Philadelphia sports teams. So it wasn't a debate for me. But the Stars franchise, when they were in Baltimore and Philadelphia, they had been to every single championship game in the 80s for the original USFL. And then they go to the championship, they lost, and then they had a terrible year last year. So, um, I don't know. I loved it. The one knock, and I get it. I got why we had hub cities. So in the USFL, there was hub cities because of the pandemic. They wanted teams to be in one city at a time. And, you know, I got it. Like it made sense why they were doing it for that time. And it was also cheap for them because you weren't spending money on these other cities. Like the Philadelphia Stars weren't playing at Lincoln Financial Field. Last year they were playing in Detroit, and I hated it. I hated watching. I would have gone to games. I would have probably gone to every single game if they were playing in Philadelphia. I'm sure a lot of Philadelphia fans wanted them to play in Philadelphia, and I was complaining about it all year long. I had to watch Luis Aguilar, the kicker of the Stars, who should have an NFL opportunity. He broke the record, the professional football record for most field goals in a single game. And I just it was frustrating to not watch this team that I enjoy play their home games in Philadelphia, but instead all the way in Detroit. I'm not going to Detroit, Michigan anytime soon. No, I don't know any people in Philadelphia going to Detroit, Michigan anytime soon, especially to watch at the end of the day, a spring football league which doesn't have players playing like in the NFL. And that's where I voiced my frustration. Um, There, I mean, there were some great players in the Stars. I loved watching Case Cookus. There was the original quarterback before Case Cookus, Brian Scott. I loved watching Brian Scott play. The whole situation of Brian Scott going to Case Cookus reminded me so much of Carson Wentz to Nick Foles the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl. but in a minor league setting. So I loved watching it. I loved watching the Stars. It was so fun. I loved all these different players. I got to learn new players and I got to root for all these guys. And Corey Coleman, I didn't like him, and now I do. I thought he was a bum, and then he goes plays the USFL. I would argue he was the MVP of the Stars last year, and he was the best player on the Stars. I know that. A lot of great players on the Stars team, and I loved the opportunities they were given. Um, they just the USFL didn't do them justice, and they didn't do any of the other teams justice that were playing in cities that they shouldn't be playing in. Obviously, someone's going to go out to St. Louis to watch the Battlehawks. Obviously, someone's going to go to Birmingham to watch the Stallions play. That goes for all these spring leagues. Obviously, you're going to go watch your team play in that city and look at the ratings of those games, look at the attendance of those games, and the home team that was playing in their own stadium was doing more successful than these other teams playing in those same stadiums as home teams. Like Philadelphia is not going to do well in Detroit. The New Orleans Breakers, I believe, were playing in Birmingham with the Stallions. I'm sure the Stallions were destroying them in attendance, but I it was just annoying to me. I really wanted a merger. That was something I was talking about all year last year. Last season, 2023 season, the XFL came back. Dwayne Johnson and his ex-wife, Danny Garcia, um, both of them were part ownership of the new XFL. And I love seeing someone of Dwayne Johnson's status be able to advertise this because if someone like him can believe in this spring league, then people that aren't like me and like all kinds of football, people who just watch football when it's on, they'll look at him and be like, "Oh, that's Dwayne Johnson. He's saying something interesting. I should probably watch what he's talking about." And it creates new fans. Um, I loved I loved it. And last year there was so much head to head between the XFL and the USFL. Um, I was so intrigued by both leagues, and I was thinking a merger needs to happen. I mean, both of these are spring leagues. Both were sometimes happening simultaneously, and I I I personally am more of a USFL fan than the XFL. I like the XFL's rules more, but I like the professionalism and I like the teams in the USFL more. Um, Plus the USFL brand as a whole since the 80s has been great. There's still a lot of people who are USFL fans and talk about the USFL on a daily basis versus the XFL. Not really many people talk about the XFL in 2001. I mean, besides the jerseys, like they had nicknames on the back of jerseys. For example, Rod Smart wearing the jersey "You Hate" or "He Hate Me." Um, that's an iconic. That's an iconic jersey at this point. And you watching these leagues, I loved it. I loved watching them. They just needed to merge. And I was saying it all the entire USFL season. They need to merge in order to be successful because otherwise they're driving away each other's audiences. And instead of one audience list being this high, it's just two audience lists being this high. So then later in the year, later this past year, the they both agreed to a merger. Now they're the United Football League. In terms of the name, I like that they kept both league names in the conferences. That's perfect because I thought they were gonna have to pick and choose, like, oh, are we gonna go with the XFL brand or the USFL brand? And at that point, I was thinking they're gonna go with the USFL brand because most people know what the USFL stands for. And no, they just created the United Football League, and I like that. I dig the name. I think it's cool. It's not really original. There was a 2009 football league called the United Football League that lasted 4 seasons ish. And yeah, I mean, I'm very intrigued by it. The issue I have is both leagues had 8 teams, right? And they already gained fan bases. The XFL, I'm sure a lot of people got fans in 2020 and then gained more fans last season. The USFL, the last 2 seasons have been gaining fans for all their teams. And instead of going with 16 teams or even cutting down 2 leagues per team and doing 12 teams, they do 8 teams. I'm I hated it. When I heard that there was rumors about that, I was like, please tell me you're not going to eliminate the Philadelphia Stars, one of the most historic spring franchises ever. The Philadelphia Stars have been to every single league championship in every single season except one, and that just so happened to be last year. They also don't play in their city. If they played in their city, then they'd probably be one of the teams, but they're not. So yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm not gonna have a team going into the season. I'm gonna cover the XFL and USFL on a daily basis. I might not post articles. I'll post videos. I'll keep everyone updated, obviously on our social media platforms, scores, playoff standings, records, everything. But it gives me a sick feeling. I was really rooting for the Stars. That's twice now Philadelphia football franchises have gone under the Stars and the Philadelphia Soul. I was a huge fan of the Philadelphia Soul. I remember watching Dan Rodabaugh um, and Derek Ross. I loved watching those teams. And now the USFL, now the Arena Football League's back and Philadelphia Soul's back. I don't like the logo though. But that's a whole other thing I could talk about. The Arena Football League is still getting set up with a couple things. Anyways, um, going to the team names. So the United Football League, again, that's kind of what I expected. That's kind of what we expected. Something along those lines. I heard rumors National Spring Football League, which interesting name. I like it. That's something could fit on a hat. But instead that's their LLC group, so whatever. They divided USFL and XFL. The one difference is this is where there was an issue. There was 2 Houston franchises, the Houston Roughnecks and the Houston Gamblers. Gamblers, iconic franchise. Jim Kelly played for them. One of our admins was a Gamblers fan because Jim Kelly obviously he was covering the Gamblers, and they got rid of the Gamblers franchise and moved the Houston Roughnecks from the XFL conference to the USFL conference because the Roughnecks have gained more popularity over the last 5 years. And I agree. I agree with the idea. It's just it kind of sucks for all Gambler fans. Looking historically, if you tell me like the Houston Roughnecks are now the Houston Gamblers, I'm not gonna agree with that. I'm just gonna say like the Houston Roughnecks just switched conferences and the Gamblers no longer exist. That's just the way I'm looking at it. It's the same thing with like when the Seattle Seahawks switched conferences from the AFC to the NFC, um, a couple years, like within their first 10 years of existence. It made sense for them. And that's kind of what I'm looking at with the Roughnecks. They're just switching from the XFL conference to the USFL conference, and the Gamblers just don't exist anymore. Birmingham Stallions are one of the teams. We all knew that they were going to be one of the teams. They're the best team in the USFL. Memphis Showboats, that was a surprise for me, considering they were new, but they have their own stadium, so I get it. I still think the Stars should have been in over them. Michigan Panthers got in. They have their own stadium too. I get it. They have a good history too. XFL conference now, you got the Arlington Renegades. Renegades, we kind of figured they just won the XFL championship. DC Defenders, they have the best or second best fan base amongst this entire league. We all know the Beer Snake. It's awesome. I've seen Commanders fans do it at Washington Commanders games or tried to do it. Also at Washington Nationals baseball games. It's cool. I love what they started. That's something that this league needs is these little things here and there that gains a fan base. I love it. San Antonio Brahmas. That just feels like something Dwayne Johnson wanted to keep. It's kind of the same way I feel about the Memphis Showboats. They got a stadium, makes sense. I did a project back in high school where if there was going to be another NFL team, the Alamo Dome is perfect, and it's a great stadium. It holds a lot. It holds 64,000 people, so I get it. And then finally, the St. Louis Battlehawks, arguably the most popular of spring football league teams in the last 5 years. So that I completely understood why they were there. Now, as for the rules, defensive pass interference. So the XFL rule, it was a spot foul. Ball is placed at the spot of the pass interference, which is also what the NFL does. The USFL rule, which I liked it, it's a spot foul if the pass interference occurs less than 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. It is a 15-yard penalty if the foul occurs beyond 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. If a defender is judged to have intentionally tackled a player beyond 15 yards, it turns into a spot foul. I love that. I think that's cool, and I would think the NFL should adopt that. I like it. The one thing I will say is refs might not know what intentionally tackling a player means. So that could become an issue in the future. So the United Football League rule is going to be the same as the United States Football League rule. So I love that. And then Dean Blandino says that the replay booth is going to determine intentionality. I love that. I think that's awesome, and I think the NFL needs to adopt that. I think that's so cool. I mean, I personally hate pass interference. If you want to have a whole video on what I think should be penalties or not, I don't think pass interference should be a penalty. That's my own thing. So replays, in the XFL, there's a central location with replay officials, and they can look at anything to determine if it's a reviewable play. Literally anything, anything. Um, Reviews are limited 60 seconds each. The USFL rule, there's one replay crew, and they determine accurate and consistent rulings. Command center can step in if they need to, if something's obviously incorrect. The XFL section of the rules from last season is going to be what it is this year in the United Football League. They say the quote unquote the standard for overturning a call is clear and obvious video evidence. Coaches challenge XFL rule. Coaches have one challenge per game and they can use on any play, penalties, non-penalties, etc. Provided they have one timeout remaining. A lost challenge results in a lost timeout. USFL rule, coaches have one replay challenge per game. And in the United Football League, the league will go with the XFL rule, so you can challenge pretty much everything. I love that. I think the NFL should have adopted that before all these spring leagues. I'm surprised they didn't years ago. The coin toss in the XFL, there is no coin toss. The home team got the option to begin the game. The USFL had a traditional coin toss, and they're not going with the coin toss, so they're going to go with the XFL. So the home team gets the option to begin the game. So, I mean, it's interesting. Not something I would have thought of, but I guess that's okay. It gives home field advantage, I guess. So it makes sense. Overtime rules. So the XFL had teams getting alternate tries from their opponent's 5-yard line, each doing 2-point conversions. Kind of reminded me of a shootout in NHL. It's best of 3. If it's tied after that, they will continue with the sudden death rules in effect. Defense cannot score on a try. A defensive penalty results in a retry from the 1-yard line. A second defensive penalty on a try results in a successful try. That's interesting. The USFL teams got alternating tries from their opponent's 2-yard line, each worth 2 points. It's best of 3. If it's tied after that, they will continue sudden death rules in effect. So United Football League, the only difference between the overtime rules was where the ball was placed on the try. The United Football League is going to use the XFL spot at the 5 yard line, as well as its other overtime rules in terms of like penalties and stuff. In terms of the extra points, there's no kicking an extra point. So you get 1 point for a successful try from the 2 yard line, 2 points for a successful try on the 5 yard line, and 3 points for a successful try on the 10 yard line. So kickoffs look like they're going to be taken from the USFL. So um, they look more like the college and NFL style, but from the 20 yard line. Kickoff out of bounds will give possession to the receiving team 30 yards from the spot of the kickoff, or the spot where the ball went out of bounds. A kickoff that is untouched by the receiving team may only be recovered by the kicking team up to 20 yards from the spot of the kick. Um, I loved the XFL's style of kickoff, and that's something the NFL is looking at doing. So I don't understand the philosophy here. This was the one rule where I didn't like. And I was firm with it. I love the XFL's kickoffs. A lot of people loved watching it. A lot of people were confused. And I was watching it with a family member of mine, and they're older, obviously, so they weren't familiar with these spring leagues. They're more NFL, college football, traditional. They were there for the American Football League. So I was showing them how they do the kickoff and compare it to the NFL. And it's just, it allows opportunity for big plays on return games. And that was awesome. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of this. That's one thing I won't agree with this league. And look at the NFL. The NFL's possibly going to implement it. I think the NFL should. It reduces injuries and allows for big plays on returns. What else do you want? Um, if you're going to eliminate the kickoff, then eliminate the kickoff. So I don't know. I don't agree with it. Onside kicks are still, you can still do an onside kick, or if it's the fourth quarter and your team is down, the you can attempt a 4th and 12 from the 28 yard line. I love that. I think that all sports, all football leagues, minor, all pee wee football, high school, college, NFL, have them all do that. I love it. I think it's awesome. And we saw it last year with the St. Louis Battlehawks. They came back and won a game because of it. And it's fun. It's exciting. It allows for a comeback in games that might not be close. So I love it. I think it's the best way to do an onside kick without actually doing an onside kick, especially with the new kickoff rules in the NFL. I mean, you really can't do an onside kick successfully. So what's the point? Just do the 4th and 12. I love it. The one thing that all of these spring leagues seem to be doing now is two forward passes behind the line, as long as the first pass doesn't go beyond the line of scrimmage. Um, I've just never seen the need for it. I don't care. This is one of those rules that like you can do it all you want, but how many times are you going to see it in a game? There, both leagues, you didn't really see it all that much last year. When it did happen, it's like, oh, this is interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. So they also define a catch as a completed catch or interception is defined as a player securing control of the ball prior to the ball touching the ground and touching the ground inbounds with both feet or with any part of his body other than his hands. So pretty much the NFL's rules. I think it was the XFL. One of the leagues only had one foot in bounds, so I get it. Now you want to be a little more professional. You get 2 feet down. That's where I get it. I've always wanted 2 feet in bounds. I think that makes sense. If the NFL is gonna have 2 feet in bounds, all the other spring leagues should also have 2 feet in bounds. Now, if the NFL ever wants to go to 1 foot in bounds or go back to 1 foot in bounds, go for it. This is the new and improved United Football League. I mean, It's going to be on ESPN. It's going to be on Fox Sports. It's going to be on Fox, and yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to see the merged talent. Um, I'm just disappointed in all the there was still so many players that lost opportunities. Um, because you eliminated essentially a whole league. You took five teams away essentially from the USFL and three teams from the XFL. Yeah, I get it, the whole merger thing with the gamblers and the Roughnecks. I get that. I don't care. Um you lost so many players. There were so many players on all these teams. I get it, you're merging, you're building a super league with all these stars on these teams now. But now there's all these guys that don't have an opportunity now. So I don't know. I don't agree with that. Um, I really hope these players though get an opportunity. And who knows, maybe the United Football League turns into a minor league for the NFL. Um, the NFL had a an agreement with the XFL last year about being like a test league sort of. Um, and now they're going to continue their agreement into the United Football League. So maybe eventually there'll be a minor league system. Maybe there'll be a minor league team for every single NFL team. So maybe we'll get the stars back. I've heard rumors of expansion going forward in the next couple years. If so, you gotta bring back the Philadelphia Stars. Have them play at the Link or something. Just have them play in Allentown or I don't care at this point. Just have them play somewhere in the southeastern PA region. So I don't know. That is the most frustrating thing. I was so excited. I was looking into buying jerseys, a Sam Mills jersey, Case Cookus. Um, yeah, I don't know. I am a little disappointed though. All the head coaches look great though. A lot of talent. I'm glad Wade Phillips is back. Wade Phillips loves this. I love watching Wade Phillips coach. Um, Jordan Ta'amu and Luis Perez, they're coming back. They're going to stay on their teams. AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron demanded his release from the Bengals so that he could start for the Battlehawks. I love that. That's a man who wants to play football and play it for his family. I respect that. I'm sure everybody can respect that. So, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. And I'm not going to have a team this year. That's fine. But I will be watching. I'm hoping for some good football. So, I hope the best for United Football League, and we'll be covering it all this season. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning Super Bowl 58 over the San Francisco 49ers. And in honor of the Super Bowl and the end of the NFL season, we're going to be doing a giveaway for a Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl jersey. If you want a chance to win this Patrick Mahomes jersey, all you have to do is comment down below. This doesn't help out your chances at winning the jersey, but if you want to subscribe to us, you can as well. A winner will be announced on March 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, only thing you need to do is comment down below.